If you've just joined us, you're just in time to catch the newspaper review on this first day of November 2024 here on Daybreak on the Arise News channel from our studios in Nigeria's capital of Abuja. And to help us review the stories this Friday morning is Eniola Akinkwotu, the chief correspondent of the Africa Report. Good morning, Eniola. Thank you so much for joining us this Friday morning. So let's look at what the papers are saying on your front pages. We begin with this day. Governors pictured there at the council chambers of the State House drawing the neck yesterday. And that's the leading photograph for this day, this morning. The big story, four-brother consultation, NEC advises Tinubu to withdraw tax reform bills. Federal government assures 19 northern governors, insists proposed reforms will benefit all states. 36 governors back Dangote Refinery. Edun counts gains of Crude-For-Naira sale. Lots of riders to that story. Above the masthead, NLC threatens indefinite strike over court seizure order on rivers allocation. And the black strip there, Shetima, decentralization of electricity will end national grid collapse. Eniola, your pick. The tax reform bills had become controversial. According to the governors yesterday, they said they were advising the president to withdraw this executive bill, of course, to allow for wider consultations. They said there's been a lot of misinformation and communication about this bill. But do you think there's more to it, as you recall the build-up to yesterday?
A few days ago, the Northern Governors Forum had kicked against this. And so what you're seeing now is a continuation. But I think the crux of it is, if you read what the Northern Governors were saying, Governor Abdullah Isule of Nasarawa State came out to express and explain very well what their fears were. He said, for instance, he was a former MD of Dangote Sugar, and that sometimes they would take VAT, make VAT deductions in certain states, and then remit everything to their headquarters in Lagos. And then the headquarters in Lagos is the one that does the final remittance to the government. And on the papers, it shows that it is Lagos that all the VAT was derived from. And so this new tax bill says that I think 60% of where it is deducted from, that is where it's going to go back to. And then Northern governors were saying, look, we're going to be shortchanged, and it's going to favor places like Lagos, where most of the banks, the telecoms, the oil companies are headquartered. So if, for instance, here I recharge my MTN and I pay VAT on it, it is the headquarters in Lagos that is going to remit it to the government. So those are their fears, along with others. So I think they said, look, government should go back to the drawing board and see how this could be done more equitably. Of course, the NEC has no power of enforcement per se. It can only advise, and they wield a lot of powers in the National Assembly. Already, Northern governors have told the National Assembly members who are Northerners to reject this bill, and they are the majority in the National Assembly. So I think most likely what's going to happen is that there will be some amendments, and there needs to be better stakeholder engagement so that at least there's wider acceptability.
Yeah, when you have 19 governors of the northern states, we discussed it here, and we said it's tacky, it's a little bit tricky, and that's what's happening now. Let's look at the Guardian. You have some stories there. How to lead millions from poverty to prosperity via local initiatives. You have the story on the NLC threatens shutdown as Wabara PDP coalition warn of crisis escalation. NAS joins plenary abruptly, adjourns, as NEC advises what we just spoke about now. And then our relationship must be win-win. Tinubu tells France, China, Denmark, government media partners in nation building, says the information minister. I want you to look at that headline story. It's so interesting in that there's a place in India, Bundelkhand, despite its large population, there's an endemic poverty in that region. But then in 2019, a state rural livelihood mission established what they call a barley knee milk producer. They had a sole objective. This is the point here, to end poverty. And then they established this company. It sounds too good to be true, but we're happy to see the company We started believing them. A resident in the area said, and the facilitators had a clear objective and a game plan. You can then read the story. A clear objective, a game plan, ending poverty in a particular rural area with something akin to them. Eniola?
Yeah, no, you know, in India, until some years ago, I think they were the poverty capital of the world. I think they have now been overtaken by Nigeria. And India has shown growth in recent years. They've actually even overtaken the UK in terms of GDP. If you look at, they also have their own Silicon Valley. India has a very, very diverse economy. And, you know, these things take purposeful planning. If you look at last year, remember that President Tinubu actually went to India, where he met with the business community, and he said, oh, he's been able to get pledges of FDI of about $15 billion. And so this particular one that you are making reference to, though I haven't actually read the details, but you can see that over the years, India has been making planning. They have been, you know, on a steady path of growth. And it has to do with, you know, targeting, you have to look at poverty alleviation, because they still have a very, very large poverty population, but at least you see that they're making plans, they are diversifying their economy. They have their own Silicon Valley too, in what's the name of this region? I can't really remember now. And so, you know, it has to be holistic. If you're saying that you are targeting economic growth, you have to also look at tackling poverty, empowering the people, you know, and investing in them. And I think that is one area that Nigeria is really lacking. Look at us, we're going to India now to beg for this. In fact, India had their India-Africa summit. Was it not last year? Yeah, India-Africa summit. The whole of Africa is going to India now. So I think it's a good example of how to ensure sustainable growth.
All right, let's take a look at the New Telegraph, a busy front page. We'll pick out some stories. Reps to audit 121.67 trillion naira federal government loans and debt since 1999. At the bottom there, power crisis. The federal government will spend over 500 billion naira to complete 100 abandoned projects. That's from the minister. NEC recommends withdrawal of tax reform bill from National Assembly. Let's take some more stories. At the very top, Edun, federal government earns 700 billion naira monthly from crude sales in naira and from subsidy removal. What are these funds used for? How do they translate to national development? In Ondo State, parties to sign peace accord. Coming just ahead of the November 8th election. A very interesting story. Russia finds Google more money than there is in the entire world. And Yola, when you look at the big story, reps to audit 121.67 trillion naira, that's about $91.46 billion of Nigeria's loans or debts. You also have Nigeria's debt surging by 24.33 trillion naira in just a couple of months. Now, the reps are asking the question, where did this money go to? Did it have any sort of measurable impact to national development, Eniola?
You know, part of the loans, you know, are also obtained by states. So I don't know if the reps also have that power to look into how states are spending the loans that we're taking. But see, there are so many probes, so many investigations being undertaken by the National Assembly. Most of the time, they don't get anywhere. I can mention hundreds of them. Even this one on the petrol, you know, the Dangote's issue with fuel, with NNPC and all that. They said last month that there's going to be a public hearing. All of a sudden, they said, oh, it's been suspended indefinitely, and we haven't heard anything about it anymore. So I think they always know how to make good headlines when it comes to want to investigate. What capacity do they actually have to investigate all the loans from 1999 till today? So I don't see this leading anywhere. I'm sorry. Sorry to sound very pessimistic, but we've seen so many of these utterances being made in the past and nothing came out of it. If they want to do it, all well and good, but I don't think, I mean, they're going to do anything about it.
Interesting, particularly when you consider, I mean, one of the functions of the legislators, which is oversight functions. I mean, when these monies were approved and disbursed, what were the committees doing at that time? Even if you want to make a case that this is the 10th National Assembly and they were not in place as at the 1999 up to date that they want to probe. But you have to ask the question about the oversight functions of the legislators. Sometimes these monies are not even, approved and scrutinized by them in the first instance, Eniola. Great point to make there. But let's move on to the next paper this Friday morning. Nigerian Tribune leads also with the next story. Withdraw tax reform bill, NEC tells Tinubu. The leading picture there is that of Vice President Kashim Shettima, the presidential villa, of course, with governors there, including that of Lagos, Sanwo-Olu, Dakwa Abiodun of Ogun State, Oyebanji of Ekiti, and of course the Ebonyi State Governor as well. There's also a devastating picture there on the front page from Ibadan, your state. How 80-year-old lost 5 grandchildren in Ibadan building collapse, 10 killed, 7 injured in the 2 a.m. tragedy. Other stories on the front page. There 3 years after wires for burial, November 30. Federal government appeals to Nasusanu to suspend strike. And above the masthead very quickly, we have improved land administration in Edo State, says Obaseki. Dangote Refinery says no payment received from Ipman. Nigeria's inflation made worse by import dependency, large informal economy, says the finance minister, Wale Edun. Eniola, let's talk about the Dangote story, because you did touch it earlier. We continue to see this back and forth. You recall that earlier in the week, the president met with the committee on the Crude-To-Naira local currency sale. The committee, it's a mouthful of the name of the committee, but it's the committee in charge of buying crude in Naira and selling the petroleum products back in Naira. And the president at that time said, just earlier in the week, there will be stability with this initiative, but we still continue to hear the back and forth. Dangote says it has enough in his refinery to last us 12 days, about 500 million liters, it says, and that nobody's coming to pick them up. Very quickly, you had Ipman say, but we have been there for days, we cannot pick up this petrol, even though we have paid money. Now, Dangote says, you did not pay me money, you did not give me money, the money is not with me, where's your money? It should be with the NNPC. I mean, what do you make of all of this? It looks like there's no ending to it.
I think the whole incident just sort of personifies what the Nigerian state is all about. I don't know why everything that is simple, anything that you expect to be simple in this country always ends up being very, very complicated. Now, there's still some people who are bent on importing petrol. And I think what some experts in the energy sector have said is that, look, these people bring in off-spec petrol, and then they blend it in Malta and they bring it in. So that's that they call it dirty fuel. Now, this fuel is expected to be cheaper, definitely, than anything that Dangote wants to sell. And so there are allegations that there's still vested interests which are frustrating, the refinery from, taking off completely. But I think also that we're not hearing the whole truth from both sides. For instance, Dangote, both Dangote and NNPC have not actually told us the exchange rates that is going to be used. Because if you're doing Naira to dollar, or what's it called, the crude, the Naira for, I'm trying to, exactly. Yes, they haven't told us the exchange rate that's going to be used. If you reach out to Dangote Refinery, they will not tell you. If you reach out to NNPC or other stakeholders, they will not tell you. So I think there's still a lot of things shrouded in secrecy. But and at the end of the day, it's Nigerians, the poor Nigerians that suffer. Just on my way here, look, it wasn't even, I got here just some minutes past 7. There's already a queue outside. It's still difficult to get petrol, and it's so expensive. So I don't know why everything in Nigeria that's supposed to seem easy, anything that's supposed to be easy just ends up being so difficult. It's really, really frustrating.
All right. The the point is that it looks like it's going from bad to worse. Secrecy, no transparency, everybody doing what they want. Vanguard, let's look at Vanguard quickly. Read some stories there, then focus on a particular story. There's hunger in the land, governors admit. Are they just knowing it? They are backing Tinubu. I mean, this is funny. Relief should come for the people. Uzodinma adds, we must encourage Dangote Refinery and all that and all that. Then you have the allocation. Rivers State problem. Rivers NSE threatens to withdraw services if they don't get their allocation. Let's just look at that story, the headline. Hunger in the land. If the headline had been increasing hunger in the land, governors are just realized, but this is hunger in the land as if it is new. What do you make of this? They are backing, I wonder what they are backing the president for. I'm at a loss. Eniola?
Well, I think that's the neck. Most of the time, they always, in fact, I've never seen any neck that has been critical of any president since most of the time they will pass a vote of confidence in him. You know, that's just a formality. But I don't think it's news to anyone that, you know, there's poverty in the country. The World Bank rep that came for the Nigeria Economic Summit Group conference 3 weeks ago said that, look, Nigeria is back to being the poverty capital of the world. You have over 125 million people living in poverty, so I don't think this is news to anybody. And things are getting worse by the day. So I don't think any governor needs to tell us what we need to know. But what are they doing to assuage the poverty, to alleviate the poverty? Look at Ekiti State now, for instance. Their House of Assembly members are traveling to Canada for a retreat. And what have they done to reduce the cost of governance in their own states? They have not done anything. Still building airports, doing projects that have no bearing on the people's lives at all. So it goes beyond just saying there's poverty. Yes, there's poverty, we all know that, but what are you doing to alleviate it?
Very important question. Let's move quickly, we're out of time, to the international papers. The Guardian UK, its leading photo this morning, very sad incident in Spain as they are in mourning. Death toll from catastrophic floods rises to more than 150. You can see the vehicles there piled up in Valencia after being swept in floods. But at the top there you have Reeves told she will have to raise further £9 billion for public services. Financial Times says borrowing costs tick up as investors digest Reeves' budget debt demands. iNewspaper says interest rates will fall more slowly after budget. This is coming from economists. They are warning that Reeves' budget means mortgage rates are likely to stay higher for longer. Eniola, we've been talking about Rachel Reeves and this budget for a couple of days now. What are your thoughts on all this development?
You know, I was reading that this is the most punitive. That's the way one newspaper, one UK newspaper described it. The most punitive tax in the UK in the last 30 years or so. And the irony is that the IMF has actually backed this budget, this plan. IMF has expressed support for it. Charities are not spared from this new initiative because there's going to be an increase too in the tax, deductible tax on pay as you earn. So I don't know why. I mean, the UK has been going through a lot of economic challenges in recent years, and you know, Starmer, one of the reasons why he won the election was people wanted relief. And now you're going to add to their burden. So it's sad, really. I mean, nobody wants to pay extra taxes, especially when things are very bad. But she's saying that there's no other way out of it. And it's part of what, if you look, you know, bring it home too to Nigeria, you see that government too wants to, they're saying they're not increasing taxes, they want the rich to pay their fair share. I think that's the way they are coining it. But at the end of the day, it's still going to trickle down on the poor. It's not how they're not going to be affected, because when taxes are increased, the cost of goods too will go up too, because you know, employers have to look for a way to get extra money to, you know, so.
Indeed, and no employer will be thinking of increasing salaries when it's paying increased taxes. The markets are also reacting to the budget.
Yeah.
They too, they've been
Markets.
jitters in the market because she is borrowing heavily, and she's made a case that, you know, she needs to borrow heavily because it is desperately needed in the services, public services in the UK, including the NHS and lots of capital projects. Well, Eniola Akikotu, thank you so much for being here this Friday morning. That's the much we can take on the paper review, as well as Daybreak for today. The morning show is up next. If you missed all the trending stories, you can catch them at 10:15 a.m. West African time on What's Trending on the morning show with OG Okwe. I am Adesua Omoran. Good morning.
I am Ndi Amogo, thanking you for watching. Bye.
Have a great weekend. I am Kichi Nana.